Qiao Nian lived in the Qiao family for 18 years when his biological parents came to visit him. For a moment, the wealthy families around the city knew that the Qiao family had a fake daughter. A true daughter is versatile, gentle and kind. A false daughter who lacks knowledge and skills will achieve nothing. Everyone wants to see how miserable it was for her to return to the mountain ditch after being kicked out of the wealthy family. Qiao Nian also thought that her biological parents came from Luohe County and were poor teachers. Who knew my brother was driving a Huiteng, with a bear car worth 3 million yuan. My father's teaching place is at Tsinghua University, and the teacher also has a nickname of professor. The top executives of the scumbag family knelt and licked at her grandfather, nodding and bowing. Qiao Nian. This is different from what was agreed upon. Breaking away from a group of scumbags, Qiao Nian became herself again. The top scorer in the college entrance examination, a live streaming expert, and an inheritor of intangible cultural heritage. One by one, their vests have fallen off, and they have been trending around the city one by one. The faces of scumbags, male scumbags, female scumbags, and their parents have turned green. Black fans are all mocking. What's the use of selling people? It's not like I stick to my brother every day. Joanne. Sorry, I have a partner now. Top stream brother. At Qiao Nian, let me introduce you to everyone. This is my sister. Grandpa from a wealthy family. Nanny, why are you working so hard? What kind of bicycle do you need? Grandpa will buy it for you. The powerful officials in the capital city are spreading rumors that the false lord has a wife hidden in a golden house, and no matter how others try to coax him, he never takes her out to see anyone. Don't ask, it's the same sentence. My wife is from the countryside and afraid of strangers. Until one day, someone saw the usually reserved and aloof man pinching a girl's slender waist, blocking her in the corner of the wall, and muttering with red eyes, "Baby, when will you give me a place?" Fake Qianjin, she is a real wealthy family, plus, double boss, keywords of the novel. Madam, her vest has caused a sensation throughout the city without any pop-ups. Madam, her vest has caused a sensation throughout the city. Download the complete text. Madam, her vest has caused a sensation throughout the city. Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. The Qiao family has a fake daughter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The Qiao family has a fake daughter. The sky around the city in June is like a furnace, and the scorching sun forms layers of heat waves on the oil road, leaving no one on the burning road. Qiao Nian dragged her freshly packed luggage out of the room. Before I could come downstairs, I heard the chirping of Qiao Chen downstairs. Mom and Dad, are Qiao Nian's biological parents really coming to pick her up? Qiao's father asked her sternly, "What are you doing here? Have you mastered the piano music you will be using later? Your grandmother's friend will come from Beijing when the time comes. She is a professor of the People's Art Theater and a national piano master. If you behave well, your grandmother will help you arrange it later, and your plan to go to university in Beijing will be stable. I am already practicing." Before Qiao Nian could go down, he heard Qiao Chen acting coquettishly again. "Dad, what do you think sister's biological parents look like?" As soon as she finished speaking, she hid in her innocence and muttered contemptuously, "Her biological parents said they were coming the day before yesterday and only arrived today. Shouldn't they have bought a train ticket? They took a 2-day and 1-night train from the mountain ditch to pick up people, right?" Upstairs, Qiao Nian's footsteps couldn't help but stop, and a hint of irony flashed through his indifferent eyes. 3 months ago, she accidentally discovered that her good sister Qiao Chen and her boyfriend were having a private affair, cheating on each other. She was so angry that she exposed the matter and realized that she was not from the Qiao family at all, but just a child adopted by the Qiao family from an orphanage. The Qiao family's adoption of her was not a sign of kindness and a desire to do good. But Qiao Chen has been suffering from a rare blood disease since childhood. In addition to taking medication for treatment, he also needs to receive blood transfusions every month. The Qiao family owns their own company and successfully went public last year. At least they have a good reputation around the city. If Qiao Chen's illness only requires money, the Qiao family will not have a headache. Coincidentally, besides being born with illness due to poor luck, Qiao Chen also has a rare Rh blood type, which is very rare. It is said that only 1 or 2 out of 100,000 people will inherit this blood type. Because it's too rare, hospitals call this type of blood panda blood. The meaning is comparable to the preciousness of giant pandas. The Qiao family has money to treat illness, but cannot guarantee that the hospital has enough panda blood for Qiao Chen to use every month. Therefore, the Qiao family thought about it and came up with a solution. To adopt a child with a matching blood type in the orphanage and use it as a mobile blood bag for their daughter. She is the free blood bag. Since childhood, Qiao Nian has been educated to be a good sister, wearing beautiful clothes for her sister and giving her the opportunity to win awards. If it weren't for the exposure of Qiao Chen and Fu Ge this time, she would still be kept in the dark. And the Qiao family was willing to tell her these things only because after years of treatment, Qiao Chen has basically recovered. As long as she pays attention, there is no need for medication or blood transfusion. She no longer had any value to use, and in addition, Mrs. Qiao was angry that she had caused a big fuss over Qiao Chen and Fu Ge at Qiao Chen's birthday banquet. In order to protect Qiao Chen's reputation and the face of the Qiao family, she simply exposed this fake daughter in front of everyone. Qiao's father didn't want to mention Qiao Nian and said, "You should say a few words less." Qiao Chen didn't pay the bill and pouted back, "That's it. They could have bought a flight ticket, how could they come now? Don't be a poor person." "All right." Father Qiao saw Qiao Nian coming down the stairs and stopped him in a low voice. The first thing that caught the eye was the wild face. She wore a light blue T-shirt and a red and white striped shirt, with the hem casually tucked into denim shorts, revealing a pair of thin and white legs. Their family members are all very white, but Qiao Nian is even whiter than them. I don't know if it's due to her skin being too white, but Qiao Nian's eyes are always particularly dark. Seeing her, Qiao Weiman always feels a sense of distance. It is indeed not due to biological reasons. "Nian Nian, have you packed your things?" After all, Qiao's father pursed his lips and withdrew his gaze, asking in a gentle tone compared to the rest of the Qiao family. Qiao Nian came down with her light luggage and let out a sigh. Qiao Chen finally saw her and immediately put away his face that had been watching the commotion just now. He pretended to be calm and shouted, "Sister." Qiao Nian didn't even bother to let out a and stepped directly in front of her. Ignored by Qiao Nian, Qiao Chen pouted unwillingly, her long eyelashes hanging down like grievances. Her fair face didn't look much red, and was as weak as a white flower in the wind. Yuan lowered her face on the spot, turning black. She clung to her cane and snorted, "I'm talking to you, can't you hear me?" Qiao Chen immediately took her hand, lifted his head, shook his head weakly, and bit his lips to help her speak. "Grandma, forget it, sister is not in a good mood, it's okay with me." With her words, Yuan looked even more displeased at the young girl passing by in front of her. Everywhere was a problem, and she spoke in disgust, "It's not like it's a child of the Qiao family. After teaching for more than 10 years, I still can't change my petty demeanor." "Mom!" Qiao called out to her pleading for the people, walked up to Qiao Nian, and pretended to take out a card. "This is 10,000 yuan. He sighed and handed it to Zhou, saying, "Take it. Go back to your parents' house and listen well. You can keep this money to buy clothes. It may also be useful for future studies." He has always been cautious in his actions, and it was at a critical time that the Qiao family won a government development project. Qiao Weimin did not want to make unnecessary mistakes. He investigated the biological parents who came to pick up Qiao Nian, who seemed to be surnamed Jiang and whose profession was written as a teacher, from Luohe County. Luohe is 300 kilometers away from the surrounding city, which is a well-known poverty-stricken county. Every year, entrepreneurs have to donate money to Luohe County for poverty alleviation, and he has also donated. That kind of teacher from a small county in the countryside, he didn't go into detail and automatically brought in the difficult rural teachers that are often interviewed in the news. Qiao Nian is already in his third year of high school, and when he returns to Luohe, it is almost impossible for him to be admitted to university, let alone like Qiao Chen, who can go to Beijing to study at a university after finishing his studies at Ring No. 1 Middle School. This life can be considered ruined. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Is also my fiancé AE. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 is also my fiancé AE. He couldn't bear it to some extent and forced the card into Qiao Nian's hand for her to hold. He looked at Qiao Nian's fair face and asked softly, "Have you finished taking the things? You can wear the necklace I bought for you on your 10th birthday. That's the gift I bought for you, it's yours. It's okay to wear it." Upon hearing this, Yuan immediately furrowed her brows and looked displeased at Qiao Nian standing there. Due to her status, she didn't feel embarrassed to open her mouth for a 3,000 yuan necklace. Qiao Chen obediently stood next to her and softly agreed with Qiao Weiman's words, "Yes, sister. Dad gave you a gift, so you can take it with you. Maybe you'll need it in the future." She didn't say the rest explicitly, but Qiao Nian could understand the meaning behind her words. He lifted his eyelids and looked at her coldly, his wild nature was difficult to tame. Qiao Chen gave her a proud smile, and the haughty expression of charity was engraved in the same way as everyone present in the Qiao family. Qiao Nian lifted the shoulder bag and returned the card to Qiao Weiman, saying calmly, "I put that necklace in the drawer of the room. You can look for it if you're not sure. Apart from the notebook I bought myself, I haven't taken anything from Qiao's house." As soon as she said these words, the Qiao family present felt a bit embarrassed. Especially Yuan and Qiao's mother, who had just been too lazy to speak, both changed their faces. This Qiao Nian never knows how to be obedient and always makes people feel uncomfortable. Qiao Chen glanced at the backpack that Qiao Nian was carrying, his eyes flickered, and a hint of disdain flashed through his eyes. He spoke casually, "Sister, my parents and grandmother don't mean that. You're too sensitive. We've been living together for more than 10 years, and even if you find your biological parents, you're still my sister. We all hope you're doing well. You don't want a necklace, you should take the 10,000 yuan that Dad gave you. Luohe County is different from the surrounding city, and there are many places where money needs to be used." Qiao Weiman regained his composure and reluctantly said, "Yes, you can take the money. No need." She had some money. Qiao Nian confiscated his card and did not intend to have any further relationship with the Qiao family. Coincidentally, her phone rang. She put Qiao Weiman's thin bank card back on the table and lowered her eyes to look at the caller ID. She said to the Qiao family, "My family has arrived, I'll leave first." Yuan saw the straight figure walking out and couldn't help but snort coldly into the air, mocking, "Humph, you're really just raising an immature white-eyed wolf. You've been raising her for more than 10 years in vain, and when she left, she didn't even shout at you. Grandma, sister, she might really want to see her biological parents." Qiao Chen's voice drifted into her ears. Unfortunately, Qiao Nian's biological parents are poor and unable to even enter the villa area. It's really funny. Sister just said she only brought her notebook and left. I saw that her backpack was bulging, not like she only had a notebook. Father Qiao shook his head and sighed hypocritically, "Forget it, we've been raising her for over a decade at least. If she wants to take it away, she can take it away. Anyway, our family doesn't lack that little money." Yuan propped up her cane and looked at her figure who had been taken away, saying in a contemptuous tone, "It's good if she left. She's not a member of our Qiao family. Angry, don't call her sister in the future. That kind of person is not worthy of being your sister. Go and change clothes with her quickly. When you come to the water pavilion for dinner, you should seize this opportunity well. There are people outside, and there are heavens outside. Although the Qiao family is considered good around the city, they still lack a bit of heritage compared to families such as the Jiang and Tang families. Later on, Qiao Nian couldn't hear clearly, only vaguely hearing Qiao Chen's uncontrollable happy response and the joyful voice of the Qiao family. The sun was scorching hot outside, and waves of heat rolled up on the road. Except for a few elderly people who occasionally took a break under the shade of trees, there were hardly anyone on the road. Outside the rose garden, a black phaeton quietly parked on the roadside. Jiang Li lifted his watch and glanced at the time. The minute hand had already turned a small half-circle, and he hadn't seen anyone coming out of the villa area yet. He rolled down the car window impatiently and looked out. The hot air outside immediately rushed in, and the cold air inside the car was filled with hot air. The man's hoarse command from the back seat immediately came out. Close the windows. The voice is shallow, suppressing blood, but with an undeniable courage. Jiang Li turned around anxiously when he heard the voices in the back seat of the car, and obediently lifted the car window with his hands, muttering incessantly. I'm talking about the delusion, it's not your sister's feelings. Don't worry. I should have arrived the day before yesterday, and you insisted that I go to Linshur to pick you up, which delayed me until today. Just now, my old man called to apologize and gave me a death order. If I can't bring the person back tonight, he told me not to go back in the future. He will pick you up himself. Yi Wangchuan hadn't slept for 3 days, with a headache and annoyance. The chattering voices in his ears were buzzing in his ears like electric drills. He suppressed the restlessness in his eyes, leaned back, lifted his eyelids, and calmly glanced at the young man in front of him. His voice was hoarse. She's also my fiancée A.E. It's also my fiancée A.E. Just a few short words make the car quiet. Chasing up for 3 generations, the Jiang family is also considered good. Compared to the Yi family, there is still a difference between him and Yi Wangchuan. He grew up together in the same courtyard, but over the years, he gradually realized that Yi Wangchuan and his family are different. In this generation, the most painful thing for the Yi family is the young master sitting in his car, who turns pale from talking in the Beijing market circle. If it weren't for the old man in his family who had a past friendship with him, who felt like he owed them a life, how could the good fortune of Yi Wangchuan's fiancée A.E. not have come to their family? He couldn't help but feel a hint of worry in his eyes. This little cousin of his family has been missing for over a decade. He has checked and found that everything is ordinary and not particularly good. He is afraid that she is not a good match for the delusional master. Coming out. Jiang Li was worried and suddenly caught a glimpse of a figure walking slowly out of the car window on the asphalt road in the villa area. It seems to be my sister. I'll go down and take a look. Jiang Lifei quickly explained to the back, unbuttoned his seatbelt, opened the car door, and walked out. Under the sunlight, the slender figure approached closer and closer. What caught his eye first were a pair of slender white legs, evenly proportioned and straight. So white. Jiang Li is used to wandering outside, and has seen many beautiful women in the entertainment industry, so he can't help but be stunned. The girl who walked by was only 17 or 18 years old, with an unusually white skin. Under the sunlight, one could almost see the purple-red capillaries beneath her skin. With a porcelain-white face, pitch-black eyes, and eyelashes as long as a small brush, there is still a hint of wild and difficult to tame unconsciously revealed in the third part of the cold silence. Even if he had seen countless beautiful women, he couldn't help but shout out, absolutely. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Turns out to be the hidden boss. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 turns out to be the hidden boss. His mother said earlier that when she was young, she was more beautiful than some female stars in the entertainment industry. He was still dismissive at the time, saying that there was no plan or truth. Now he believes. Face slapping in seconds. How fragrant. On the other side, Qiao Nian was casually talking to the person over there with her phone in hand. Grass, did the Qiao family really kick you out? That group of people is really disgusting. They used to use you to hang your cheap sister's life, and usually hypocritically used your family's identity and morality to kidnap you. As soon as they saw that you had no value for use, they immediately kicked you. If I had known earlier, you wouldn't have bothered to treat that Zhou Chen. They knew the truth. If it weren't for you, how could that short-lived ghost of Qiao Chen, who can only survive for 20 years, be cured? They thought hemophilia was a cold, and just take amoxicillin and sleep it off. Qiao Nian saw someone walking towards him, lowered her eyelids, and casually said, "Anyway, the Qiao family has taken care of me and cured Qiao Chen's illness. I will repay their favor. I have nothing to do with them in the future." The person on the other end of the phone gritted their teeth and said with a grudge, "How much have you helped the Qiao family over the years? You have no idea how much you have helped. If it weren't for you, why would Xiao Weiman think he was foolish enough to bring business from the surrounding city to the capital? And your younger sister, who used to ask you to give her extra lessons and help her adapt music, has their family taken advantage of you for a little bit? I thought they were your own parents and sisters, but I just thought they were biased. Later, I knew they were not related to you by blood, so I knew they were shameless. They knew you weren't their biological child, and they didn't treat you like family. It's okay to use you that way, right? Your face was made of titanium platinum, right?" Qiao hesitated for a moment, feeling that his description was quite appropriate. He curled up the corner of his mouth and said, "When did you make up for Chinese? I already know titanium platinum. I have always known." Qiao Nian lowered her voice as she saw Jiang Li approaching and said, "I have something else to do. I won't tell you for now. I'll hang up. Where do you stay at night? Do you want me to go around the city to pick you up?" "No need, my family has come to pick me up." "Are you really looking for your biological parents?" Qiao Nian's eyes were indifferent, and his tone was low. "Even a leaf has roots. At least I need to know where I come from and who I am." The other side remained silent for a moment, then remained silent. Qiao Nian didn't want to guess what he was thinking at the moment and whispered, "Hang up." She hung up quickly. Jiang Li had just arrived, and she had already hung up the phone. She put her phone in her pocket. Who doesn't like beautiful things or people? Jiang Li smiled and stepped forward to help her get things, taking the initiative to greet her. "Nian Nian, right? I'm your cousin, Jiang Li. Just call me Gu. Qiao Nian looked up at him. Jiang Li was tall and had outstanding skin, with a pair of narrow peach blossom eyes that naturally gave a harmless and friendly feeling like a smile. His forehead was tinged with a bright purple color, revealing his frivolous and playful personality in his noble demeanor. "Shoo, she seems to have seen this face somewhere before." Qiao Nian's face is blind, and she usually can't remember unimportant people. She filtered through the faces of people she knew in her mind, but let it go if she didn't remember them. Hello, I'm Qiao Nian." She politely greeted, looking quite well behaved, at least in Jiang Li's eyes. "Grandpa's legs are inconvenient and he can't take the plane, so he asked me to come and pick you up. He took the high-speed train and will arrive later. Your father and my parents have booked a place to eat at the Shuixi Pavilion, which is probably already there. Let's go over first." Jiang Li smiled and talked to her while asking to help her carry her bag. "Nian Nian, I have a friend in the car who will have dinner with us later. Do you mind?" Babies, the new book season is very important for a book. While pursuing and nurturing literature, don't forget to click on a collection review and recommendation ticket. The better the grades, the faster the updates, and the more enjoyable you will be reading. The two giants of the new book are disguising each other and slapping each other, Su Xuan. "Little brother, there are multiple completed articles, and the quality of the pit is guaranteed. In the early stage, the female lead hides the big shot, and in the later stage, Qiao Jia takes you to face and fly. Manic and melancholic wolf-style high school student from Beijing's wealthy and young ex-hidden vest wolf male lead. Never forget, there will always be an echo. Babies, don't forget to call Qiao Nian and Quan Yi. Your encouragement is the driving force for me to write. Additionally, the book group number, 7037443370, for this book is any character in the Knocking Brick book, end of this chapter. Chapter 4. At least 2 million naked cars. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. At least 2 million naked cars. Qiao Nian evaded his outstretched hand without any trace, always following behind him at a distance of 1 step. Her voice was hoarse and casual, and she spoke clearly. I don't mind. Jiangli looked at his empty hand and was taken aback. Surprisingly, he glanced at the seemingly soft and weak little cousin next to him, his eyes flashing with a confused expression. How did she hide? He didn't even see clearly. Jiangli thought it might be an accident, but didn't think much about it. He happened to walk up to the car door and helped her open the rear seat door. It's hot outside, get in the car first. Before Qiao read it out, she didn't know what kind of people her biological parents were or what they were doing. She just posted her information on a popular website for searching for lost children called Baby Go Home, and soon someone contacted her. Afterwards, it was all Qiao Weiman's handover. Qiao Chen had unintentionally revealed to her that her parents were from Luohe Town and were teachers. Qiao Nian squinted her eyes and looked at Huiteng, which was covered in a halo under the sunlight, then withdrew her gaze. She knew about this car model, and Tang Fong told her that the bear car starts at 2 million yuan. This car comes with a sunroof, which looks like it's the top of the line and will cost no less than 3.8 million yuan on the ground. Qiao Nian raised her eyebrows. The Bentley that Qiao changed for the people 2 years ago was only 5 million yuan. Who is her grandfather from Luohe County? She had just sat in when the cold air brushed over her face, dissipating the heat and dryness brought by the sun outside. Qiao Nian glanced at the friend sitting in the car who was going to have dinner with them later. The other person is probably in their early 20s, with eye-catching eyebrows and eyes. Perhaps due to the slight lifting of the tail of their eyes, their whole face feels a bit cold when they lift their chin slightly. The clothes on their bodies are not recognizable, but the workmanship is exquisite. Wearing them on him seems to be tailor-made for him, with metal buttons shining brightly without any wrinkles. Their eyes are deep, lazy, and decadent, making them difficult to get along with. On his wrist, he carried a string of lifeless Buddha beads, and inside the car, there was a faint scent of sandalwood. Does this person believe in Buddhism? Jiangli smiled and introduced himself outside the car door. Nian Nian, this is Yi Wangchuan, my friend. You can call him, Brother Yi. Qiao Nian paused and looked around. The Huiteng is a relatively spacious sedan model, but the person's long legs have an illusion of nowhere to put them, and they need to be slightly bent to put them down. Qiao Nian felt an invisible gaze fall on her. She pursed her lips, lowered her eyelids, and casually called out to Yi brother, then found a seat next to her. However, Yi Wangchuan's eyelids were lifted by her soft brother's call, and his deep eyes rarely rippled. The gaze fell on the young girl sitting quietly in the corner beside him, her skin white, very white, as delicate as white porcelain glaze. Her eyelids were thin, and as she looked out the car window, her curled eyelashes also flew up, just a little one, obedient to death. Jiang Li's driving skills are good, and there are 3 people in the car. Jiang Li seems to be afraid of her embarrassment and occasionally brings up a topic to talk to her. By the way, I casually introduced her to the situation at home. Only the man sitting next to her never spoke from beginning to end. But he sat there, like a resting lion, even without revealing his claws, making it impossible to ignore his existence. The car quickly arrived at its destination. Shuixi Pavilion is located in the center of the city. On this piece of land, every inch of land seems to be losing without building a skyscraper. Unfortunately, Shuixi Pavilion is located in the most bustling area, but it has a large garden landscape. Located in a prime location and quiet amidst the hustle and bustle, it is destined to have a high level of quality and good business. I'll go park. Jiang Li parked his car at the door and said to the man who had not spoken in the car, "Mr. Wang, I have booked a water-shaped private room. Please take Nian Nian in first, and I will come over as soon as I park the car." Qiao Nian heard a deep nasal sound beside her, and a deep and seductive male voice seemed to be pressing against her ear. Let's go. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. That's a real top-class mansion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 6. Professor Qingda's light and fluent teacher. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Professor Qingda's light and fluent teacher Qiao Chen held on to He Yujuan's hand tightly, his eyes flickering as he looked towards the direction Qiao Nian had just left and whispered, "Grandma, did you hear what that person just said?" He seemed to say that sister's biological grandfather was in that private room. But isn't Qiao Nian's family from the countryside in the valley? How could you afford to book a private room in Shuixi Pavilion? The entire Qiao family thought of this and their faces were not very good looking. However, there were still outsiders around, and some things were difficult for them to discuss now. They could only put aside their doubts and temporarily follow the waiter to the place they had booked. Asterisk in the private room. Yi Wangchuan pushed open the door, and several people sat inside the door, all painted together. She followed behind as soon as she entered. The elderly person sitting in a wheelchair immediately turned red and asked someone to push him over. Excitedly, he grabbed Qiao Nian's hand and before he could speak, his eyes were already moist. "Are you Nian Nian? Good kid, after all these years, Grandpa finally found you. I'm really afraid I won't be able to wait for you before I go. If I don't find you, what face would I have to tell your mother when I go underground?" Qiao Nian looked at his graying hair, and the emotions on the old man's face didn't seem to be fake. His hale and hearty eyes were now filled with tears, indicating how excited the emotions were. Even the hand holding her was trembling. She had never felt this before, and her mood fluctuated along with the old man who was holding her hand and chattering. Mr. Jiang was at least a person who came out of the midst of strong winds and waves. He lost control of his emotions for a moment, but gradually managed to control himself. However, his eyes still looked red, indicating that he had moistened them before. Grasping Qiao Nian's hand, he began to introduce the people in the room one by one. "Nian Nian, this is your father, Jiang Zongjin, who is currently teaching." Yi Wangchuan raised his eyebrows and leaned diagonally against the wall, watching the old man introduce him. "Professor Qingda," the old man introduced himself with a light and elegant teaching. Qiao Nian saw a man wearing a Zhongshan suit with slightly red eyes and clenched his hands into fists, as if trying to control his emotions. She was very vague about the concept of dad, but the old man seemed to want her to call her dad. She pursed her lips and looked at the middle-aged man with clear eyes, shouting, "Dad." "Ah." The middle-aged man's eyes immediately turned red and he quickly stopped talking, afraid of revealing his emotions. Mr. Jiang breathed a sigh of relief and gently introduced the other members of the family to her. "That's your second uncle, second aunt, and your sister Xianro. Your second uncle is doing business outside, and Xianro is about your age. You've seen her brother before, it's Jiang Li." Qiao Nian looked around and saw a girl about her age standing next to a couple. The expressions of the girl and her mother were both indifferent, indicating that they were just nodding to save face for the old man and reluctantly greeting him. The man looks okay and greets her affectionately. "Uncle and aunt," Qiao Nian called out at a slow pace. Mr. Zhang's face was full of joy. He didn't ask Qiao Nian to immediately integrate into this family. Seeing that Qiao Nian didn't resist, he was satisfied. He immediately took Qiao Nian's hand and said, "Are you hungry? You haven't had lunch yet, have you? Come on, let's eat first. Zong Jin, let the waiter serve the dishes." Okay. The family was enjoying themselves at the dinner table, and the old man kept picking up dishes for her. I asked her about some past events. As long as he asks, Qiao Nian will answer every question, although the answer is very brief, at least it is not perfunctory. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Reading at Ring Number 1 Middle School. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 7. Reading at Ring Number 1 Middle School. As he asked, Mr. Jiang suddenly paused and hesitated to speak. "Nian Nian, I heard you took a year off from school. Are you about to enter the 3rd year of high school? Have you decided which high school to attend? Is there a school you like?" High school, school. Qiao Nian was originally buried in the soup for a while, but when she heard this, she lowered her eyelashes and narrowed her gaze. The old man didn't mention it, she never thought about going to school. For her, high school and college are just diplomas, and she no longer needed them. But at this moment, Qiao Nian pondered for a moment, lifted his eyes and shook his head. "I haven't figured it out yet." Jiang Xianro mistook her previous hesitation for poor grades and sneered in her heart, saying that if she couldn't get into high school, she wouldn't be able to, and she hadn't figured it out yet. Grandpa is really good, and he even asked her which school she likes. Can you like it and go on? Yi Wangchuan glanced at the obedient girl who was eating, stretched out her body and leaned back in the chair, speaking casually, "It's good to go around the city. One middle school around the city." Mr. Jiang originally intended to take Qiao Nian back to Beijing to study. Upon hearing this, he was taken aback and immediately realized that Qiao Nian still had a certain identity. Yi Wangchuan's fiancée A.E. There are many people in Beijing with mixed eyes, and Nian Nian returned to Beijing with such a big thorn in her face. He may not be able to protect her, but after a moment of thought, he agreed, the first middle school around the city is good, and the teaching quality is also good. Nian Nian, what do you think? Ring Number 1 Middle School. Qiao Nian pursed her lips and didn't really want to stay around the city again. But looking up at the old man's expectant gaze, she somehow nodded and said, "Whatever, I don't care. Then let's go around the city for the first time." He is recuperating in Beijing, and Zong Jin is also working in Beijing. If Qiao Nian wants to stay around the city, he can only let the people in the second room take care of him. He turned his gaze around Jiang Xianro and the others, frowned, and said, "Your second brother has a house around the city. In the last year of high school, besides the school, you can temporarily live on his side." As soon as these words were spoken, except for Jiangli, the other 3 members of the 2-bedroom family didn't look very attractive. Jiangli has a separate house outside, but what does the old man mean by arranging people outside so openly? Prevent them. Jiang Xianro, who was still young, immediately pouted and expressed her dissatisfaction. Jiang Zongnan is okay, but a bit awkward. Tang Wanru, who sat elegantly on the side, wiped her mouth as if she didn't care to participate in such a thing. Yi Wangchuan calmly said with ease, "I will also stay around the city for a period of time to help take care of her." Qiao Nian suddenly looked up at him and happened to collide with someone's gaze. This gaze she almost choked on the soup in her throat and averted her gaze. Inside the outer compartment, Qiao Chen and Qiao Weiman were absent-minded after a meal, constantly pondering about what happened to Qiao Nian before. Several times, they lost their focus while talking. Fortunately, He Yujuan and Tang Wei had a close relationship, and in the end, it was confirmed that she could enter the People's Art Theater after completing the college entrance examination. Qiao Chen finally felt a little better with a heart full of agony. After a meal, the guests were overjoyed. He Yujuan, Qiao Weiman, and Mrs. Fu are going to see off Tang Wei's mother and daughter, and Qiao Chen is also following behind. After leaving the water pavilion, Fu Gu saw her pale and absent-minded appearance and walked beside her, whispering, "What's wrong?" Qiao Chen saw his resolute eyebrows and eyes, bit his lips, shook his head, and coquettishly replied, "It's nothing, my head is a bit uncomfortable." End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The scumbag is pretending to be weak again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The scumbag is pretending to be weak again. She was in poor health since childhood, and Fu Gu didn't think much about it. He looked up at the adults in front of her who were chatting early and said, "Do you want to go to the hospital to see them?" Qiao Chen was just lying casually, not really feeling unwell. He immediately stopped him, grabbed his arm, and said vaguely, "No need, Brother Gu. I'm just having an old problem, maybe it's because I had a bit of chest tightness after staying inside for a long time. Come out and take a breath of fresh air, and it'll be better in a while." Fu Gu had a caring expression on his face and gently helped her to calm down with his hands. His voice softened and he said, "If you're feeling unwell, you should tell me earlier. Aunt Tang and the others are not the ones to care about." Qiao Chen looked at his handsome face, as Qiao Nian's gloomy mood finally eased. She sweetly and shyly took his hand and said, After a sound, she seemed to remember something and pretended to speak, "I saw my sister just now." How could she have run to Shuixi Pavilion? I remember my dad said that her biological parents are from Luohe County, and there is only one train to Luohe County every day around the city. Didn't she buy a ticket? Upon hearing this, Fu Gu furrowed his brows and turned his head to look at the water pavilion. He didn't take it too seriously and said, "Maybe." Qiao Chen bit her pink lips and hesitated, saying, "Actually, before I left today, I had a bit of a fight with my grandmother. Even though my dad gave her money, she didn't take it. She seemed to think we were going to drive her away. And it's about you and me. Brother Gu, am I too greedy? I shouldn't have snatched you from my sister. It's none of your business." Fu Gu saw her watery eyes shrouded in mist, and his heart hurt. He immediately said, "I fell in love with you first. Qiao Nian her will bless us." Qiao Chen has been in poor health since childhood, soft and weak. The only brave thing is to be with him. As a man, he cannot be irresponsible. Qiao Chen is so weak that without his care, he is not at ease at all. As for Qiao Nian, he can only say sorry. Qiao Chen saw that when he talked about Qiao Nian, her expression was indifferent and there was no extra emotion inside. Her blocked mood felt much better, and she responded softly. "But in my heart, I was thinking about the reason why Qiao Nian came to Shuixi Pavilion. Perhaps just as Grandma and the others said, Qiao Nian's arrival here was just a coincidence." She picked up her good mood and smiled at the corner of her mouth. Suddenly, the corner of her eye caught a glimpse of the corner walking out from another direction. Qiao Nian. Qiao Nian was wearing the clothes she went out at noon, a striped shirt over a T-shirt, and light blue denim shorts underneath, revealing her two straight legs and white eyes. That face was equally outstanding, with untainted pink eyes as black as ink, furrowed eyelashes, and a body that seemed to be hiding a mysterious hook that caught people's attention. Fu Gu clearly saw Qiao Nian and exclaimed in surprise, "Qiao Nian." Besides Qiao Nian, he also saw others. Qiao Weiman, who was walking ahead, heard this sound and stopped to look over. Tang Wei was supported by her daughter and was originally walking ahead. She didn't know who she saw, but suddenly stopped talking to Huiteng. Let her daughter help her walk over to Mr. Jiang and greet him with joy. "Mr. Jiang, why are you circling the city?" "Jiang Lao." The Qiao family members are all stunned. Madame Fu didn't know what was on her mind, her face changed slightly, and her eyes flashed over the Jiang family and their group in an instant. Jiang. She has heard of this surname, isn't it as Jiang as she thinks? The circle around the city is also divided into 3, 6, and 9 classes. The Qiao family has just stepped into this circle with 1 foot, and must be considered at most in the 9th class. The Fu family is much better than the Qiao family, and there are people in their family who are in the officialdom. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Not being a teacher, what's to regret? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Not being a teacher, what's to regret? But when it comes to the most powerful families, the Jiang and Tang families can definitely be considered top, as well as the Shen and Fu families, who can only barely squeeze into this circle. Among these families, the Jiang family is the leader. Due to the intricate relationship between the Jiang family and Beijing, Mr. Jiang was also a remarkable figure in the city when he was young. But as I grew older and my health deteriorated, I moved to Beijing for recuperation 10 years ago and have rarely returned since then. These younger generations have heard of names, but they rarely see themselves. Mr. Jiang saw the group of people, who were happy at happy events and laughed loudly, come back and pick up my granddaughter. Granddaughter. Tang Wei silently helped Qiao Nian push the wheelchair behind him. Ice flesh and jade bones, outstanding eyebrows. It's this little girl, she looks really good. She didn't exaggerate. The Jiang family was all pretty, but the girl in front of her. How to say, amazing. Mr. Jiang couldn't help but laugh and said, the appearance of a child is not important. Nian Nian, this is Grandma Tang, he said with an indescribable pride on his face. Qiao Nian's eyebrows twitched slightly and she obediently shouted, Grandma Tang. Tang Wei immediately took off the string of beads from her wrist and stuffed them into Qiao Nian's hand, feeling guilty as she said, Oh, Nian Nian is really good. I didn't know your grandfather was taking you here for dinner today, so if he knew, he would definitely prepare a good gift for you. I've been wearing this string of beads for a few years, and it was something I went to Puzhou Temple a few years ago to see Master Wuming and have sex with. Don't underestimate it. Qiao Nian evaded several times, but couldn't, and with the addition of Mr. Zhang's words, she reluctantly put away the things. Tang Wei gave the meeting gift and happily chatted with the old man about the family routine. The Qiao family, including Mrs. Fu, were all stunned. Especially for Huiteng and Xiao Weimin, their faces were blue and purple, and Xiao Weimin stood still and didn't talk. At this moment, Xiao Chen felt as if he had been struck by lightning, with a delicate face as white as paper, completely white. She clenched her fingers and whispered in a voice that only she could hear, incredulously, Sister, her parents are not from Luohe County. How could Grandma Tang know each other? Moreover, Tang Wei's attitude was not just about knowing each other, but even showing a hint of deliberate closeness to the old man beside Qiao Nian. Qiao Nian, how could she know such a person? Tang Wei chatted with Mr. Jiang for a while and then asked Qiao Nian, Do you think Nian Nian is already in high school? I'm almost in my 3rd year of high school, Mr. Jiang replied with a smile. Tang Wei looked at Qiao Nian and asked, Where are you studying? Mr. Jiang didn't hide anything and casually replied, Let's take a year off from the First Ring Middle School. She had to choose a new school before. When I asked her, she thought the First Ring Middle School was okay, so she temporarily let her stay here to study. The distracted Xiao Chen and his family both heard the name of Ring No. 1 Middle School, and the last bit of blood on Xiao Chen's lips was gone, almost unable to stand. Ring No. 1 Middle School. Qiao Nian is going to study at the No. 1 Middle School around the city. When she was taking the high school entrance exam, her family put in a lot of effort to get a spot to study at the No. 1 Middle School around the city, but the other party casually said something, and the huge difference made her look dazed. She didn't feel in the mood to listen to anything Tang Wei said later. It wasn't until Qiao Nian followed Mr. Jiang and her group that she regained consciousness and heard her grandmother asking about the influential Tang grandmother and Tang aunt. Who was that old man just now? Tang Wei didn't know their relationship with Qiao Nian, so she casually replied, Oh, you mean Mr. Jiang? An old friend. Huiteng asked in confusion, What kind of friend? Why haven't you mentioned it before? Tang Wei and He Yujuan have a good relationship, but the Qiao family cannot reach the true top and upper class circle around the city. The old man from the Jiang family has some connections with the upper class, and even she needs to be treated with caution. She doesn't want to reveal the other person's identity to unrelated people, so she just smiled and said, "In total, Mr. Jiang is still half of my teacher." She loves painting, and Mr. Jiang is a master-level figure in traditional Chinese painting. She has sought advice from him several times. Calling half a teacher is not excessive. Oh. He Yujuan understood when she heard this. The poor relatives of Qiao Nian's family are from Luohe County, but they are doing well as teachers and should have some reputation in the local area. She knows that her friend is obsessed with traditional Chinese painting, and judging from the age of that old man, he may not have some skills in this area either. Isn't it common for TV dramas to portray the kind of talented people who appear in the countryside? Unfortunately, he is not a famous teacher either. I heard before that his granddaughter got lost and hasn't been found. I didn't expect to find someone after so long. The child at home has been lost for so long, and it's not easy to find them back. I'm sure I'll treat that child like a heartthrob to spoil. That girl's fate is really good. I heard that Jiang always finds information about her granddaughter online. The girl posted the information online, which shows that the family who adopted her did not treat her well. I don't know if that family will regret it in the future. The Qiao family's face was so painful that their eyes were filled with stars, and they couldn't say a single awkward word. Qiao Weiman thought that he had just thought Qiao Nian was chasing him for money, and his face was burning with anger. His heart, liver, spleen, stomach, and kidneys were almost squeezed together. I am completely embarrassed to use this tone when chatting up. However, He Yujuan looked coldly at Qiao Nian's back as she walked out, with a non-committal expression on her face. Not just a teacher, there's nothing to regret. Teacher. Did she misunderstand something? Everyone has gone far away. Tang Wei didn't say anything more. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Wang Chuan, are you free? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Wang Chuan, are you free? Outside the Shuixi pavilion. The Jiang family's car has arrived. As soon as Qiao Nian walked out, the phone in her bag shook incessantly. She took out the phone, lowered her gaze, and walked outside to stop. Nian Nian, what's wrong? Mr. Jiang kept an eye on her every move and immediately asked with concern when he saw her stop. Did you forget to take something? No. The thing she wants to take is somewhere else. Qiao Nian put his phone back in his pocket and looked up to discuss with him, Grandpa, I want to go somewhere later. Mr. Jiang had just found her and wished he could pick the stars from the sky and give them to her. Without hesitation, he said, where do you want to go? I'll have your brother take you there. Jiang Xianrou's eyes flickered with dissatisfaction as she interjected, Grandpa, I have a press conference later, and my second brother has agreed to take me there. Jiang Xianrou, as a beautiful academic powerhouse, has gained some fame in the entertainment industry and has appeared in many TV dramas before graduating. It is somewhat famous in Beijing. Can't the driver give you a ride? Mr. Jiang disagrees with her going into the entertainment industry. The position of the Jiang family does not require Jiang Qianrou to show her face outside, but Jiang Zhongnan and Tang Wanru agree that Jiang Qianrou is playing with tickets in the entertainment industry. He, as a grandfather, shouldn't be too tough and doesn't allow young people to have their own ideas. Jiang Xianrou pouted unhappily and took his arm to act coquettishly, saying, my second brother and I agreed early on. She looked at Qiao Nian with hostility and casually said, let the driver take Nian Nian. Qiao Nian's eyes were not blind. Seeing her hostility towards her, she casually spoke, don't bother, I'll take a taxi myself. How can that be done? Mr. Jiang was the first to refuse. He frowned and considered for a moment, then suddenly looked to the side and said to the distinguished man, Wang Chuan, do you have time to help me recite? Jiang Xianro immediately bit her pink lips and her face slightly changed. She insisted that Jiang Li send her away. The key is not Jiang Li, but the people she is with. She was thinking of having more opportunities to spend time alone with that person. If Yi Wangchuan had sent Qiao Nian off, wouldn't she have just spoken in vain? With a forced expression, she grabbed the old man's arm and said, "First, Grandpa, Brother Wangchuan is so busy that he definitely doesn't have time. Why don't you let second brother see her off? I'll take a taxi myself. Didn't you just say that your second brother had an appointment with you?" Mr. Jiang turned his gaze to the tall and upright young man, asking for his opinion. "Wangchuan, are you free?" The meaning is that if you don't have time, just forget it. Yi Wangchuan stood in an awkward position, and his spare light swept past the young girl who was replying to the news. He asked Jiang Li for the car key, which was full of aggression and coldness. He said to the old man in a serious tone, "I have time. I'll give her a ride." Jiang Xianro's expression has become less attractive now. She reluctantly forced out a smile and kindly suggested, "Brother Wangchuan, you must be very tired after just returning from Linshire. It's better for second brother to send Qiao Nian away. Tang Wanru knows her daughter's thoughts, and Yi Wangchuan's identity is there. Who wouldn't want such a son? Law." At this moment, without speaking all night, she said, "Yes, Wangchuan, let Jiang leave to see you off." Jiang Li didn't notice these small details, so he casually patted his shoulder and asked in a low voice, "You haven't slept well for 3 days. If it's really not possible, you can go back and rest first, and I'll send you to recite." "No need, I'll send my people." Jiang Li. Yi Wangchuan took the car key from him and didn't care about Jiang Xianro and the others. He walked straight to Qiao Nian, lowered his graceful Danfang eyes, and spoke slowly, "Where do you want to go?" Qiao Nian is a person who is very afraid of trouble, especially in interpersonal communication. I saw Jiang Xianro staring at her with resentment from a few meters away, and Tang Wanru's expression at her was also cold and repulsive. She withdrew her gaze and glanced at the man who inexplicably wanted to give her away. The temples are throbbing with pain again. Jiang Li, this friend. Really annoying. She put her phone back in her pocket and didn't look at the Jiang family. Wangjiang South Road, she said, end of this chapter.